r/rules horror. Posted by you/list_of_rules. I took a job as a warehouse night guard. I found a strange list of rules. Like most people, the pandemic has put me out of a job and in financial trouble. I lost my well-paying job in late December and have since been moving from one crappy minimum wage job to the next. At the time my rent was due in a week and I was in heavy debt from student loans. That's why, when I saw an ad in my local coffee shop advertising a warehouse security guard for $20 an hour with no experience needed, I pounced. I dialed the number on the listing and they picked up the phone on the first ring. Robinson's Distribution Center, how may I help you? A female voice called through the phone. Hello, I'm calling for the security job. After I gave her all my relevant information, she asked me when I could come in and hired me on the spot. Wait, don't I have to come in for an interview? That won't be necessary, Mr. Davis. You can come in for your first shift at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. With a few parting words I ended the call. And so tonight I pulled up to the nondescript building near the edge of my city and walked in. Hello, I'm here for the security position, I said to the receptionist upon entering the waiting room. Ah, you must be Mr. Davis, she said. I'm the receptionist, Mary. Your uniform is in locker 11. Your shift starts at 9:30. Just before I opened the door she stopped me. Oh, Mr. Davis. I almost forgot you'll need these for the night, she said while holding out a radio and an envelope. The radio is connected to my intercom in case you need help. You can open the envelope in the staff room. I thanked her and entered the warehouse. As I entered I heard the door click behind me but I paid no mind to it. I headed over to the door labeled locker room and grabbed a vest and some overalls from a locker. After putting on the uniform I headed 2 doors down to the staff room while admiring the hundreds of yards of pallets stacked to the ceiling. When I entered the room, I approached the old coffee maker sitting next to the fridge and poured myself a cup of the dark liquid. I sat at the table and opened the envelope only to discover 3 objects. The first object was a digital watch displaying 9:15 p.m., the current time. The next object was a small map of the factory. And the last object was a printed piece of paper that read, Rules for the Warehouse Security Guard. Contained within this envelope is a map of the warehouse and a digital watch. Both of these items are to help you navigate through the night. Also, as of receiving this note, your salary has been increased to $10,000 per night. The following is a list of rules that you must follow throughout the night. 1. You are to follow the rules at all costs. Violating certain rules could affect some time-based rules. 2. You are to patrol zones 1, 2, and 4 from 9:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. Nothing abnormal should occur during this time with the exception of rules 9, 13, and 14. 3. From 11 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. you are to take your first break within the staff room. 4. From 11:30 p.m. to 2 a.m. you are to resume your shift as normal. Please do be advised that this patrol will be far more dangerous than the last. 5. At exactly 1 a.m. an empty truck will appear at loading dock 1. You must load the red cube into the truck and close both its door, and the warehouse door. 6. From 2:30 a.m. to 2:50 p.m. it is highly recommended to prepare for Rule 8. 7. At around 2:50 p.m., make your way to the entrance of Zone 3. Please ensure you have grabbed a hold of the door handle by 3 a.m. to prevent unnecessary confusion. It is also recommended that you use this time to set an alarm on your watch for 4 a.m. 8. At 3 a.m., all the lights in the warehouse will go out. At this time you must pull open the door to Zone 3 and enter it immediately. For the next hour, you will have to evade the chaser. The chaser will appear identical to yourself and will have the same physical attributes as yourself, however, its mental instincts will become primal. At 4 a.m. the chaser will revert to its true form and will become incredibly hostile. At this point, you may begin searching for an exit that will appear as an out-of-place green wooden door. Upon crossing through it you will end up in the reception area, meaning your first night will be over. The following are the non-time-based rules. 9. At some point during the night before 1 a.m. a random pallet will be replaced with a red cube. Move this cube to loading bay 1 for Rule 5. 10. If you feel that you are being watched in Zone 2 then you are most likely being stalked by a watcher. In order to stop a watcher from following you, stop walking and calmly but firmly state, "I see you." This often intimidates them. 11. If you hear something on the ceiling above you in Zone 4 do not look up. Remain calm no matter what it tells you or who it may sound like. If you look up, or the movement stops abruptly, run to Zone 1 as fast as you can and hide until it wanders away. 12. If you see a woman hanging in a bathroom stall, immediately exit the bathroom and turn off the light. 13. If you see a dark spot in the warehouse that the overhead lights fail to illuminate, immediately report it to the receptionist and stay in the staff room until it's resolved. 14. If at any point in the night you see a pallet that seems glitched, in a way, immediately report it to the receptionist and wait in the staff room until you get the all clear. Do not interact with the metal separating the pallets. Should anything abnormal that is not on this list occur, immediately notify the receptionist. Sincerely, Management. A chill went down my spine as I read the list. This had to be some kind of sick prank, right? Of course, it was. I laughed at the absurdity of my reaction. As the watch that I was now wearing hit 9:30, I prepared to start my rounds. As I packed up, I decided to leave the rules on the table despite the little voice in the back of my head screaming at me to take them. As expected, my first set of rounds were uneventful. Admittedly, the list did have me on edge, so I opted out of entering Zone 3, the frozen section, which was entirely closed off from the rest of the warehouse. After the rounds, I took my first 30-minute break at 11 p.m., partly because of the list but mostly because I was tired. After the 30-minute break, I resumed my rounds and began patrolling the zones. Again, excluding Zone 3. As I was in Zone 2, around midnight, it happened. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread and thought something was watching me. I felt the gaze burning into me from my right side. As I turned to face the feeling, I froze. Nestled behind a small pallet, I stared at something in the darkness that paralyzed me to my core. A pair of burning red eyes stared back from the void of darkness. I tried to scream but nothing came out. As I continued to participate in a horrifying staring match between me and this creature, a long, thin, and pale arm extended from the darkness and began spanning the roughly 2-meter gap. Only at that point did I remember Rule 10. As the long, bony fingers were only feet from my chest, I quietly said, "I see you." The arm froze at my comment as if it didn't know what to do. After a few torturous seconds, the arm silently retracted back into the darkness. The eyes locked with me one last time before they closed, effectively vanishing. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and made a break for the staff room. After arriving, I grabbed the list of rules and read them. Crap, Rule 9. The truck would be here in an hour. I had to find that box. I spent the next hour searching the warehouse in a panic for the red cube. At 12:58 I found the cube sitting on top of a box in Zone 4. I grabbed a forklift and pulled the box down, which was difficult due to my lack of training, but I managed. The drive to the loading zone took a few minutes and by then it was 1:02 a.m. As I drove up to the truck in loading bay 1, I saw that some humanoid creature was phasing out of the back wall of the truck. There was only one thing I could do at that moment. I rammed the box and forklift into the creature. It made a horrible screeching noise as I hit it. Both the creature and the box miraculously remained undamaged. However, the creature had still been pinned to the wall during the crash. I jumped out of the forklift and, without a second thought, ran out of the truck and closed its door. After I ensured the door was firmly latched shut, I pressed the big red down button on the main door controls. I stayed to make sure the door closed sufficiently and fell to the ground in exhaustion. After a while of cursing myself out for almost getting myself killed, I resumed my shift. This time I swore to follow the rules to the letter, no matter the cost. The next hour and a half was uneventful, to say the least. The only things of note were a couple of run-ins with a few crawlers and an odd experience with Rule 14. I at first didn't notice the two pallets sitting in front of me slowly merging. Of course, the moment I saw it and remembered its significance, I immediately pressed the call button on the radio strapped to my belt. Rule 14, I'll 5, Zone 1, I said through the receiver. Roger, you know what to do. Oh, and don't worry about Rule 6, it should be done by then. The familiar voice of the receptionist was far too cheery for the situation at hand. As instructed, I entered the staff room and sat next to the door. As I watched the receptionist through the little window in the door, I considered making a break for the entrance. I then pictured the $10,000. That would be enough to cover rent and pay for food and other commodities for a month. I figured that, as long as I could make it through Rule 8, I'd be fine. By the time I had decided to stay, the receptionist had returned to the front room. Out of curiosity, I decided to check out her handiwork in Zone 1. Upon arriving at the scene, I saw that she had indeed separated the two boxes. A thin blue piece of metal was now dividing the pallets. I instinctively reached out to touch the sheet but remembered the end of Rule 14 and slapped my hand away. Best not to make the situation worse than it already was. Before I knew it, I was standing before the freezer door awaiting the moment I had dreaded all night. I exhaled as I counted with my watch. 57, 58, 59. A loud bang reverberated through the air as every light in the facility cut off. I pulled a metallic handle and threw myself through the door. As the heavy door banged shut behind me, I took in a breath of frigid air. I gazed around me in a combination of awe and horror. The endless shelves were arranged in an endless maze. I thought back to my schooling days and the old myth about Theseus and the Minotaur. Right cue, a figure began approaching me from the distance. This thing looked like me. All of our features were identical, with the exception of its horrifyingly wide smile that seemed to split its face in two. The creature charged me and I took that as my cue to bolt left down one of the many aisles. As I continued to evade the monster, I glanced up only to realize that the shelves around me sprawled and twisted for an eternity above me. I took turn after turn down the endless aisles, but the creature kept pace with me. Just as I was beginning to lose hope, my watch beeped, signaling 4 a.m., and I gained the extra adrenaline to keep moving as the creature behind me began to take form. I heard the many legs of its now centipede-like body skitter up and down the shelves, trying their best to catch me. I turned around and stared into its eyes. Hunger and desperation radiated from the 4 black orbs. I almost felt sorry for it. Before I could finish that thought, I saw a green gleam about 50 yards ahead of me. I dove for the door and threw it open as the horrible creature took one last desperate lunge after me. One of its many claws tore into my arm as I dove to safety. A strong grip pulled me back from the door and closed the unholy creature off from the room. "Are you okay?" the ever-kind voice of the receptionist asked. "Looks like she took a chunk out of your arm. Let's get that patched up." She finished applying gauze to the wound and sent me off with my $10,000 check. While I was in there, I swore to myself that I would never do anything like that again. But the money is too good. So, until I can get back on my feet, this is all I've got. I'm going back for another shift tonight. Wish me luck.